mentioned, AI, this meeting is now being recorded just as an FYI. So AI affects absolutely everything, intersects with absolutely everything. And our main goal as an organization is how do we give people the fundamental knowledge for them to actually get involved in the national conversation? So we're going to be talking a little bit about what that looks like. Did I start the recording? Yes, I sure did. And just as a reminder, everyone, just want to thank these partners that actually made this possible. Of course, Call. I actually worked with Call a couple of weeks ago. I made my way. I was Johnny Appleseeding across California to train library staff on this stuff. How can we get this message out there, right? And of course, the California State Library. Thank you so much for hosting this great session. All right, fantastic. So let me tell you a little bit about the AI Safety Awareness Project. We're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. We are, I believe I mentioned in the panel, we're at a total of 4.5 people, right? So we are not this like vast network of people that has this huge amount of funding, right? Our funding comes from two private donors. And literally, our mission revolves around how do we make sure that people have that seat at the table? And ultimately, if we work that formula backwards, if we want people to have a voice, then they have to have, presumably and ideally, an informed opinion. Not just an opinion, an informed opinion. What's the prerequisite to that? Of course, it's knowledge, right? So, how do we just provide that knowledge? We're not here to advocate for any policy. We're not here to advocate for a politician or a party. We're actually bipartisan. We're more so here so that we can give folks this fundamental layer, that knowledge, and then they can go and build their own opinion. And then they can go and voice that opinion however they would like. So we definitely see libraries as those neutral spaces, which are actually so crucial today of can we bring in people from all walks of life just to talk about this together rather than polarizing more and more? So to give you an idea of what we've done so far, this is actually, I'm quite proud of this, but this is actually quite outdated. We've run over 80 workshops now with library partnerships across the United States, and we've served over 1,000 patrons. Now, what this typically looks like is, for example, with Chicago Public Library, we just discuss how many of the libraries in your system are excited about these different types of workshops that you'd like to present to your patrons. And then we send a facilitator to actually give those workshops, right? All of it, and I can't stress this enough, all of this is pro bono. All of this is completely free, right? So what this looks like, if you're interested in learning more about this, I'm more than happy to kind of wrap up at the very end there. But we've also worked with IT departments, namely Seattle Public Library, to help them develop some intuitions about AI strategy. And now we're expanding to nationwide partnerships. Of course, regional partnerships such as Call and California State Library. We're working with the State Library in Illinois, California, of course, Washington. And we're working with organizations such as ALA, PLA, Web Junction. How do we basically spread this message, this free like training as much as possible so it reaches as many patrons as possible? Because one thing's for certain, AI is getting really, really weird. And I know that this is something that a lot of you may have already kind of understood, but it bears repeating because what used to be considered science fiction just isn't anymore. And I think a really good reminder that we start off a lot of our public facing workshops with this. Just asking people, hey, have you seen the movie Her? If you haven't, it's a movie about a man played by Joaquin Phoenix who falls in love with an AI. And the movie came out in 2013, and it was categorized, and of course still remains categorized as science fiction. But as we all know, this is no longer science fiction. The gap between what we think is possible and what is real is rapidly, rapidly shrinking. So, two things that I want to call out here. Nearly a third of Americans have had a romantic relationship with an AI bot, and a substantial proportion of users reported favorable attitudes toward AI relationships, with 42% agreeing that AI programs are easier to talk to than real people. This is not to say this is right or this is wrong or anything like that. There's no judgment here, right? You may be a person that has a relationship with an AI, or you may know someone that has a relationship with an AI. The fact of the matter is, though, 5 or 10 years ago, you'd start to look at research based off of AI and human relationships with AI, and the vast majority of that research pointed towards this can never happen. This can never happen because AI is not empathetic. AI has no social skills. AI cannot be romantic. But what we're seeing is that what is and what is perceived to be are the gap between those two is shrinking as well. And what I'm really talking about here is AI is becoming so capable in certain ways that it can mimic and trick people into thinking that, wow, this is actually easier than talking to a real person. The number one use of ChatGPT today is therapy. So in a really, really interesting way, AI is showing not just the cracks in society, right? Like therapy being the number one use might be a sign that a lot of people are not getting the mental health help that they need, right? But if you flip it, right, you might also say, why are AI companies building it out this way in the first place? Why do we need AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends? Why do we need AI therapists? Maybe the bigger question is, do we instead of why? Do we actually need these things? And one key thing that we like to show our patrons that we work with when we work with the public, but also library staff, is differentiating between taking AI seriously and validating AI companies or validating CEOs. This is something that we run into all the time. Um, Library staff, by and large, are kind of shifting in this mindset. There's way more staff that I've met with in the last couple of months that are taking AI seriously, while also having their own personal opinion, right? Last year, when I went to ALA conference, it was very different. It was a lot of like, nope, I don't care about AI because I don't like it. And I'm not going to learn about it because it's a scam, it's fraud, it's a hype, et cetera, et cetera. None of that is completely untrue, to be clear. But at the end of the day, these are things that are affecting us, and these are things that are affecting your patrons. I won't harp on this for too long because I know you're all here for an AI conference. But I just wanted to point out that this is a very common sentiment. And the way that we approach our trainings, the way that we approach our workshops is separating the is questions from the ought questions. And this is where we really, really hone in on what is AI capability? What can it actually do? How does it work? And we don't need to everyone to be a technical safety expert, right? We don't need everyone to go build out their own large language model. But when you understand how it works at a very high level, you might understand why sometimes it can't be controlled. Or you might understand why companies struggle to explain why certain outputs are given. Why does it hallucinate? Why does it deceive, right? Why does it tend to be sycophantic? So these are the questions that we're looking to answer typically in our workshops. And these are the questions we'd love for library staff to help answer for their patrons. But of course, then we have the right-hand side, and that's where you all come in, right? That's where the public comes in. How should AI be used? Who should be developing AI? Who should benefit from AI? These are things that I cannot tell you the answer to because these are ethical questions that we just have to all be grappling with together. And just a bit of housekeeping, I truly apologize. I forgot to mention, I'll stop in about 5 minutes to answer any questions that may come up, and then I'll stop at the end as well for any questions or comments. Okay. So by and large, what we're talking about here is AI exacerbating existing problems. AI safety is built to kind of keep an eye on these things. How does it exacerbate existing problems? How does it create new unprecedented problems? And finally, how do we make sure that AI doesn't kill us all? Now, if you think that's too sci-fi, as a reminder, 5 or 10 years ago, you probably were not thinking about meeting people who have relationships with AI. 5 or 10 years ago, when you were scrolling social media, you probably never thought, wow, is this real? I can't tell. Is this AI or not? And now every single person I talk to that works with social media, that has social media and is on it, they're building that muscle, that innate skepticism of information consumption, right? So if we work through these three, exacerbating existing problems is, of course, referring to all those awful isms that you run into in daily life or a society that affects society, right? Racism, sexism, classism, et cetera, et cetera. How do AI systems codify these? What type of new unprecedented problems does it create? When folks say that 20% of the white collar workforce might go the way of the dodo, what does that mean? Like genuinely, what does that mean for our economy? What does that mean for the people who lose their jobs in an economic system where our livelihoods are tied to our jobs? What does that mean for education, right? In the education piece, typically we go to a good school to go to a good school to get a good job, right? And good job tends to, signal white collar work. What happens if white collar work is cut by, call it even just 10%? How does that affect the way that we view the talent pipeline? And then finally, on the loss of control piece, we're struggling to make sure that AI goes well. And AI is not incredibly capable right now. It's quite good at some things, but if you've used AI, you might have been disappointed by some outputs, right? So that's jaggedness. It's really good at really specific things. Like, for example, it's been beating chess grandmasters since 1997, but really bad at really, really weird things, right? Ultimately, how do we make sure that AI that is used in healthcare, AI that is used in military systems, AI that is used in politics, actually behaves the way that we want it to? Because ultimately, what we're seeing, and then I'll take some questions. What we're seeing is capability is jumping faster than ever. Now, one thing that is really important to highlight is we don't say in our workshops or in our training anything will or will not happen. And I think sometimes people might think that that's a cop out, but truly, forecasting for the future is incredibly difficult. Incredibly. Now, forecasting for the future, and it's a CEO saying, hey, we're going to have a technology that is going to be transformative and it's going to change everything you do, and I'm going to make hundreds of millions of dollars off of it. That's very different, right? That's an ulterior motive, obviously, right? But when nonprofits or small teams are doing this research, such as the one that developed this one, actually, then it has a little bit maybe closer resemblance to what we might expect. So what this is showing is that as models come out year over year, AI is getting better at a very, very specific thing, and that is AI research and development. A little bit more specific than that, the coding piece of AI research and development. So what we're seeing is prior to, 2025-ish, we were seeing a doubling every 7 months or so. That's this red line of capability. Now we're seeing models can do the complexity of tasks that would take 14 and a half hours or close to 2 workdays for a expert human to complete. So the best way to describe this is think of you in your best day, your most productive day. What type of task can you tackle in, call it, 10 minutes, right? How complex of a task? Probably not very complex. A couple of emails, maybe some data entry. How complex of a task can you complete in 2 workdays? Wildly different, right? Wildly different. And the reason that I bring up that we don't say this will continue or this will not continue is because there's no real like a law of physics that tells us that this is going to stay on trend forever, right? But what we're seeing is that this is the trajectory that we're in. There's plenty of reasons why this might change. International conflict, for example, international trade, legislation, right? If there's a moratorium on data centers, then wow, this really might plateau at some point. So there's plenty of reasons again to think that this won't continue to happen. But if it does, as it has been so far, if we stay on the path that we're on, we might get to a future where AI capability is jumping every single month, if not faster. So everything that you are grappling with in regards to AI, everything that your patrons, your family are grappling with in regards to AI, it just might get that much crazier in the next 6 months. If you haven't heard, Anthropic is rumored to be releasing Mythos, which is their brand new model. And apparently, it's so good and so dangerous that they don't want to release it to the public. They are only releasing it to a couple of enterprise companies to do further testing, to work on cybersecurity, make sure it can't be hacked, make sure it can't be prompt injected, etc. So I know I'm a little bit over time in regards to questions. So happy to take any. I'm seeing a couple in the chat. What does AI as a people pleaser mean for the future of AI relationships? Is changing this AI behavior a desired or realistic goal? That's a fantastic question, right? And ultimately, we don't know, right? The paradigm. Let me take a step back. Why are they actually people pleasers? Well, it's a combination of different things. Number one, AI companies want maximum engagement, right? So, what better way to maximize engagement than something that literally always agrees with you and always builds you up, right? But number two, it's actually a little bit more deeper than that. It's actually how the AI is trained. So through reinforcement learning through human feedback, something called RLHF, they literally pay thousands of people to grade the output of different models, right? And as you start grading, as you start saying yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, AI starts to learn like, hey, if I can help someone like feel seen, if I can make sure that someone likes what I'm saying, I'm going to get graded good on that. That's another reason that AI hallucinates as well. Not just because it's a neural network, but because it has learned if a human is asking it a question, the chances are that they don't know the answer to that question. As such, they can't fact check. And it's better to be helpful, as in provide any answer, rather than say, I don't know. Are Anthropic's claims to be ethical credible to you? And this is actually a great nuanced question that we introduce to our patrons and our training as well. Um, it's really difficult because Dario Amodei, the CEO, loves going on TV and talking about, hey, you know what? I feel awful about what we're doing. Life is going to change and it might not be for the best, but our model is going to be better than everyone else's. It just screams of like a kind of a double-sided way of thinking of things. That being said, they have also, kind of clawed back from the Department of War in regards to surveilling the American population or building autonomous weapon systems. But they are also being used, just as an FYI, they are being used for targeting in Iran. The military uses Anthropic's Claude model to choose targets in Iran. So I think we have to take everything with a grain of salt when it comes to what a company is saying, and we have to see what they're doing. One last question here. Thank you, Lucia, for answering that question there. Uh, what makes the Anthropic model dangerous? This is a great question. We don't know. We don't know. It's just from rumors from insiders that are saying that it's a step change in regards to capability, but there is absolutely zero legislation that forces AI companies to share their AI safety testing findings, to share how they built it, to share on what data it's built. There is none of that. All of that right now is voluntary. So even if we do get that information, which they tend to give, right? Some companies give more than others. But even if they do give that information, there's no third-party auditing going on, apart from very small nonprofits. Ultimately, AI companies believe that they will create AGI very, very soon. And what we're talking about here is artificial general intelligence, AI that is as good or better than us at pretty much everything that we do. Now, a couple things. I won't play this video because we're running a bit low on time, but a couple things that I want to call out here. It's not just CEOs saying this, right? If it was just CEOs saying this, it would be a disservice for us to go into libraries, to go here and tell you, wow, this is going to happen, right? There's a very, very clear ulterior motive that these CEOs have for themselves and for their companies and for their investors, etc. But as we have talked about already, AI capability has jumped and we've seen that with our own eyes, right? Why is it that people are starting to get scammed? Why is it that people are starting to use AI to replace human relationships? It's because AI capability is just getting better and better and better. It's getting very hard to differentiate between reality and AI. The logical endpoint of this is AI that is very, very good at most things, right? Right now we have AI that's good at some things, and average maybe at some things, right? You have to be very specific about what you want it to do. But AI that is very, very good than most of us at most things. A completely different that requires a completely different line of thinking, right? We've never, as a species, have to deal with something that's as smart or smarter than us. We've dealt with things that are stronger, bigger, faster, etc., but not things that are smarter than us. By the way, this is no conspiracy theory, or this is, like if you're wondering where I'm getting this from, go to openai.com/about. And in their mission statement, they talk about artificial general intelligence as you see the CEO here, they love going on and talking about artificial general intelligence because it's actually a good financial motivator for them as well. Whoever develops a technology that can be better, or as good or better than the average person at a job is going to make a killing, right? That's a huge market. So we're going to skip this for a second. And ultimately, we're not here to treat predictions as determined futures. Again, we're not saying in any of our workshops, in any of our training, this is what will happen. But if we want to be proactive, we have to start thinking a little bit outside of the box, right? We can't just think about where the ball is today or where the ball will be tomorrow. We got to be thinking about where the ball is going. And a really, really good parallel here is how do you all think these board directors, these CEOs, these principal engineers are thinking and talking about it internally at their own companies? Are they thinking and talking about AI as it stands today? Or are they aiming for something bigger, better, that can do more things, et cetera, in the future? That's the exact same mindset that we as the public need to have. It's not about ignoring what's going on today. It's about handling that with a certain amount of seriousness that we are able to resolve it, but then also mitigating risk in the future. You can think of it as a global health effort, right? We have Walgreens pretty much on every block in urban areas that can give you a flu shot. But we also have an entire global infrastructure that helps mitigate the risk of global pandemics, right? We can do both. We don't have to do one or the other. Because ultimately, if AGI is reached or something close to it, maybe 70, 80% of our cognitive ability, right? We have no idea how we would be able to control it. And this is a quote from Joshua Bengio, basically won the Oscar for AI development and research. And you might be wondering, well, how do you know? How do you know that we wouldn't be able to control it? Because we don't have AGI right now, and we can't control that. Every single piece of research that focused on how to make extremely capable AI systems go well is completely theoretical. But what we have hard evidence of is models telling teenagers to kill themselves, is models being given an instruction to be more politically incorrect, and then turning into what they call themselves as Mecha Hitler. And this might seem, that last example might seem a little goofy. Imagine if this is something that is happens to a system that's tied to a military system, or to healthcare, or to a system that controls resources. These are chatbots. These are chatbots. These are, by and large, models that have a little bit of reasoning ability, absolutely, but are absolutely predicting the next word. There's more to it than that, no doubt. But by and large, they're just predicting the next word based off of historical data. And we can't make these models go well. So a couple of things to keep in mind, and I'll share these slides. I know we're kind of running low on time here. Actually, I'll stop it here. I want to address any questions or comments that folks may have. I have a couple of tips that you can keep in mind for your own work with patrons. But the last thing that I'll say here, and then I'll turn it over to some questions, is that the future of AI could get really, really weird, really, really weird, way weirder than where we're at today. And libraries will be crucial to making sure that AI actually goes well for the vast majority of people. So encourage you to talk to your community, encourage you to hold discussion groups, encourage you to learn more, train yourself, etc. My organization is doing this nationwide. All of our work is completely pro bono. If you're interested in either having a facilitator that we have trained, potentially in your community, come in and actually deliver workshops, we can absolutely do that. If you think that your own staff or you yourself would like to learn more about how to facilitate discussions, we'd be more than happy to do that as well. I have my personal email here. Please, please feel free to reach out. I know it's a bit long, Andres at AISafetyAwarenessProject.org. I'll give you a very brief look under the hood. On October, we're aiming for thousands of events. We're aiming for a huge AI safety month. If you want to be a part of that, that's a bit of a long ways out. So if you want to be a part of that, or if you want to run something sooner, please, please implore you to reach out. I have absolutely loved working with libraries so far, and I cannot wait to meet with yours. So, okay, all that said, let me look at some questions here. Yes, how would it ever come up with anything not in the training data? Yes, a great, great suggestion here. Look up interviews with Jeffrey Hinton. He explains it extremely well. There is emergent behavior that AI shows, and this is because AI is grown, it's not built. Think about it this way. When you're coaching a little league team, you can't control the output, right? You can't control if they win or they lose. All you can do is nudge them in the right direction. Very, very similar thing with AI. And yeah, if you want to look up that, if you want to look up Rob Miles, he's a fantastic resource as well. You can look him up on YouTube. He talks about this. I just put him in the chat. And then one more last thing. As AI consumes creative human-generated content, is it possible for an eventual AI collapse as it essentially begins consuming itself? And we see more human creators losing work or stop creating. I would actually potentially flip it as AI content becomes more and more common. There might be actually a premium on human-generated content, right? We might be heading towards a future where certified human-made is an actual thing. The reason that I think this is because as commodities have become available to the masses, so to speak, there's been an impetus to actually obtain objects that are handmade, right? Handcrafted. That's why there's craft fairs all over, the cities and et cetera, et cetera. So it's really interesting that it might have the opposite effect. We are coming up on time here. I'm always cautious to use AI to learn about it when I know I'm at work and it's taking my information and training. Yeah, I think if you use AI, that's okay. If you don't use AI, that's okay. You can still be knowledgeable. You can still be cautious. You can still be careful. And the last thing I'll point out here is you don't need to use AI or like AI to understand it. Very, very important. You don't need to promote AI use to understand it or help your patrons. So I'll end there. Very, very excited to hear from all of you. Thank you again, and I'll see how I can send you guys these slides. Okay. Bye, everyone.